Hi everybody, today we are going to paint some sculptural faces, and the concept behind today's exercise is very simple. We are going to simplify shapes. So let's begin with the basics. Let's imagine that you feel as if you cannot draw, okay? Maybe every time you try to draw a face, it ends up looking something like this. That's completely fine because, in essence, that's all you really need to begin painting a human face. The challenge is often not the drawing itself, but knowing what that piece can evolve into. For example, you can start refining the shapes, and just by doing that, your sketch becomes a little bit more refined and maybe with slightly more defined features. But again, this is still very simple, very basic. So today we are going to repeat an exercise we did in one of our early videos. Many may have not seen it because it was quite a long time ago, but let's do it again, just in case. We begin by drawing some very basic shapes, nothing absolutely fancy. Then we cut them out, and these shapes will be our guidelines for sketching. We begin by adding a pair of eyes, a nose, and a mouth. And just like that, we've got a face. Move things around and you have a different face. Play with the layout. It helps you visualize and form a composition. Move things around and you have a different face. Then you can try bigger eyes or a smaller nose. Maybe a completely different mouth. Because drawing in most essential form is about arranging lines and shapes in a space to create the illusion of a specific object. So here I've just added a line and suddenly you recognize it as hair. This is a great exercise for learning how to organize visual elements within a composition in order to communicate your subject. I highly recommend playing around with this as much as you can. And once you're happy with your sketch, go ahead and paint it. You don't need to add anything more complex than this. So let's start with the first one. I'm going to paint a little girl in the style and shapes that we used in our paper cut exercise. Once again, we are using those same basic lines to paint our subject. I'm using black paper here, but I think you can still see the sketch lines. And of course, feel free to adjust your sketch before you begin painting. This is really as simple as it gets. And I'm pretty confident that no matter how basic your drawing skills are, you'll be able to do this. I'll speed up the process now since it's very similar to our usual method, okay? We are going to be working with layers, okay? The first layer, basic shape. The second layer, to add volume. And a third layer to add shadows and highlights. And that's it. Very straightforward. There is absolutely nothing to it, okay? I will always encourage you to develop and evolve your skills. But at the same time, I'll also always encourage you not to feel intimidated if you think your skills aren't good enough. They are. Embrace your current ability and focus on intention. That's exactly what the great masters did. I really like how this one turned out. Yeah, the only thing I am still unsure is about the background. I may change it to something a bit brighter, but overall, I'm very happy with it. Okay, now let's start our second one. I'll keep the video sped up since you already know the process, okay? And I don't want to drag the video out. Once again, no pressure for perfection. We are painting simple shapes, and that's our intention. We are not apologizing for imperfection. We are embracing it. Just one important thing to remember. Try to follow the natural direction of the features when painting. For instance, paint in the direction of the nose, the eyebrows, the chin. Use the first layer of paint to mark the key features you've drawn because they will eventually be covered by the paint. So these will help you a lot, okay? And even if you don't add shadows and highlights, the brush stroke texture alone will help define the facial features, okay? So here's our second composition. It's very simple and yet very expressive. Okay, let's move on to the third one. As you can see, these portraits look a bit like minimalist sculptures, as if you're painting a sculpture rather than a person. And this brings me back to my days when I was still in art in university. One of my professors told us that if you struggle to draw live models or realistic faces, start by sketching sculptures because sculptures are already simplified. The artist has already done the hard work of reducing the subject to the essential shapes, okay? So if drawing people feels overwhelming, begin with a minimalistic sculpture. It will remove some of the pressure, okay? You're not drawing a person, you're drawing a thing. And that shift in mindset can make a huge difference. It will detach you from the pressure of making it perfect. And remember, we don't need perfection, we need expression. Okay, for the final one, I'm going to play around with color just to show you that we don't always need to stick to natural tones in order to convey a strong portrait. This one might be my least favorite of the batch, but once again, it's all about experimenting, trying new things, losing the fear of making mistakes, actually embracing those mistakes. And eventually, you'll find a style that not only suits your skills and perspective, but may define you as an artist. Most of the artists we remember, the ones whose work we can identify at a glance, became known for how they moved away from the norm, especially after the invention of photography. They didn't just represent nature as it appeared, rather, they brought us a new version of it through emotion and personal vision. So here are the results of today's session, and I hope you've learned something new today and that this exercise helps you to embrace simplicity, minimalism, and the idea that your skills, no matter how basic they might seem to you, they are enough. As always, keep on practicing and thank you for joining us.